Have you ever wondered why superheroes in capes and ninjas with headbands dominate our cultural imagination? Western comics and Japanese manga share the same starting point with just being ink on paper, but their worlds and storytelling couldn't be more different. One is colorful and loud, the other is sharp and cinematic. So where's the twist? I wouldn't be talking about it if it was something just so simple, right? There's a silent battle going on between these two mediums, and as for the winner, well, I'll leave that to your own discretion, but I can give you some insight into where the lines are drawn between the two, and even a third competitor we are just now starting to acknowledge over here globally. So by the end of this video, we'll uncover who's thriving, who's struggling, and this new emerging wild card that's changing the game up entirely. So hi, I'm Remy. Let's get into it. So let's begin. So I want to start where I started off with the great land of America. Insert eagle noises, the real ones, maybe not the fake. No, let's do the fake ones. The fake ones are more fun.
Sounds cool. Wrong. The sound that you think is made by the bald eagle is actually made by the red-tailed hawk. The bald eagle actually sounds like an overgrown seagull.
So let's start with American comic books, or Western comic books. And what's their biggest strength? I'd say it's the variety. Every one of art styles alone, it's like a buffet. Marvel offers glossy cinematic realism. With indie comics, you often get a variety of different styles you wouldn't find in mainstream comic books, ranging from grungy to abstract to beautiful art form. It's visual storytelling at its finest, hands down. And it's no longer like bound by the traditional, I need Superman to look like this, and I need Spider-Man to be built like this, and Iron Man, Cap. You don't have to follow those rules. It is a wonderful sandbox of creativity for any artist in that space. The lore of Western comics is unmatched. Superman isn't just a character, he's a cultural touchstone. Excuse me, I have a question. How may I help you? Remy, but I've been told Western comics are so hard to follow. Well, my good person, whoever told you that was entirely correct. Western comic books are so hard to get into. Starting points are so nebulous, I don't know where to reference people to, honestly. I'll send them to YouTube channels most of the time because I don't know where to tell you to start a Western comic book. It's so hard to get into because it's so long, there's so many lores, retcons, reboots, and crisis events. If you know that I don't know where to tell people where to start nowadays. Decades of lore can feel more like quicksand than a solid foundation, honestly. Explaining a Marvel crossover to a newcomer feels like giving someone directions in an unfamiliar city. It's confusing and incredibly overwhelming. And the reboots, like please do not get me started on the reboots after every big event. It seems like they feel like more like a company reset button rather than a creative choice. I was gonna write in a joke about some kind of reboot being stupid and not great for the continuity of the overall story, but I didn't feel like it. It's just too much. It's not fun to punch while they're down because these reboots are just most of the time really bad most of the time. Let's talk about Absolute, but that's still new. So I know about Absolute comics right now and they're pretty fire. So I'm gonna give that the gray area right now. Anyway, back to the script. And not to mention monthly releases. It feels like getting your favorite show in 3-minute episodes once a month. Not a great feeling. Now let's head to Japan, land of the rising sun, Goku's homeland, and other anime references. Let's talk about it. Manga thrives on its creator-driven vision. It's personal, focused, and often breathtaking. The genres are endless. Horror, romance, sports, even cooking. Whatever your vibe is, there is a manga for it. Weekly or bi-weekly, chapters keep you hooked. Cliffhangers don't last years, unless they do. Very rarely, but sometimes they just do, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's not to say it's all sunshine, roses, and sakura petals or whatever. Sometimes it's not all great. Mangakas often work under brutal schedules. We're talking about health-damaging levels of stress, and sometimes story stress too, like chewing gum that's lost its flavor. For example, you've got stories like, hate to throw one of the big three under the bus like this, but before Bleach came back a couple years ago with this new amazing anime, all we had was the manga as the official end of the series. And in 2016, that manga ending was awful. To my knowledge, which may or may not be correct, there was a lot going on with Kubo and Jump at the time, which kind of seemingly forced the rushed ending that we got. But thankfully, like I said earlier, this new anime is giving Kubo the time to stretch out his final vision. And clearly it shows that he had something cooking, which was crazy. They just didn't give him enough time, unfortunately. And thankfully, situations like that are very rare. Something that isn't is probably bad localization. Localization can be a hit or miss, with unfortunately translation sometimes losing the magic of the original dialogue. And with this new element like AI, people are considering using AI machine translation for mangas coming out nowadays. And while I'm not fully against AI or anything like that, I do feel like if we use machine learning and AI translations, we're gonna lose a lot of the nuance that human elements add to dialogue. It's a human language, and it feels like we need someone that could determine what nuances in languages rather than a machine that's just going to be A and B with it and very strict with the translations. Enough about Japanese manga. As much as I love them, I want to talk about the third wild card I was talking about earlier. And that wild card is the Korean webtoon. And the funny part is you've already probably seen a couple of them without even knowing it. Webtoons are designed for smartphones. From vertical scrolling, vibrant colors, and accessible platforms, they are the secret weapon to reach a new audience. Digital comic books are the way of the future, and they are ahead of the curve, honestly. From popular manhwas like Solo Leveling, Tower of God, God of High School, Lore Olympus, and others in that same nature, are breaking out and leading the charge internationally. And here's why they shine. They're not just standing apart, they're influencing manga and comics alike, actually. With frequent updates, reliable stories, webtoons are catching eyes and building a global audience. And honestly, they're changing how we consume stories, one swipe at a time. Now that we introduced all three major players, here's where things get interesting. Western comics love the never-ending saga. Batman's been fighting crime for decades, yet Bruce Wayne never seems to age. Manga? Well, it's all about the journey. Stories like Naruto, Attack on Titan start and evolve. By the end of the story, these characters are almost unrecognizable. But there's the thing, there's always an end of the story. And webtoons, well, webtoons somehow tapped into binge culture and made it work. With short arcs, frequent updates, they make you keep scrolling, and it's genius. And the visuals? Ooh, the visuals? Comics are splashy and bold. Manga is cinematic start, and webtoons? Man, webtoons, baby. They are sleek, digital first, and modern. If you couldn't tell by now, I'm a big fan of webtoons. Love manhwas, love webtoons. That's my new jam currently. Okay. Bias aside now. Okay, back to the script. Now I want to talk about accessibility, right? Here's the fun challenge. Try jumping into a Western comic book without a guide. As I said earlier, it's hard. It's real hard, unfortunately, because who wants to do homework before you even start reading the actual book? Nowadays, if you want to get into a Western comic book, you have to ask what issue, what universe, what character. Was this pre or post crisis? Is this before Dr. Doom did what he had to do to save the universe after the incursions in Marvel Comics had to have a soft reboot, which led to a Civil War II, which led to Miles Morales? I can't say what he did, but he made Captain America take a very long Discord nap and never woke up again. And these events also led to Iron Man becoming a hologram and Riri Williams taking over for a while and a bunch of other butterfly effects happened. You see how confusing this sounds with no context, and I'm giving you context. It still sounds confusing, but that's just the state of current comic books in the West. And mind you, this is stories from a couple years ago. I'm not even telling you about some of the current stuff like Krakoa and everything that's going on with the mutants currently in Marvel Comics. It's just a lot. And don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure DC, Marvel, and any other big publisher in the West know this. That's why digital subscriptions like Marvel Unlimited help, because it makes it way easier and more accessible to read comic books rather than having to buy physical. But if you wanted to buy the physical, that is a very expensive hobby, and more power to you if you do it. You are a bigger fan than I am. If the West scared you, let me talk about Japan now. Mangas make life easier. Start at volume 1 and then just follow the numbers. That's it. No tie-in novels, no special crossover events. It's just one to end, with occasionally there being a spin-off if you want extra content, but that's, rare and neither here nor there. But at least you have a start and end point with manga. And not to mention, it's cheaper too. With mangas, you can buy these things called tankobons. I know I'm not pronouncing that right. Ignore it. Tankobon collections and apps like the Shonen Jump app make it incredibly accessible. And webtoons might as well just be handing you the key to the studio, because honestly, they're free to read with paywalls only if you want to skip ahead. The results, no matter what your budget is, you'll find the starting point. And while I might be clowning a little bit on Western comic books, they're still a great medium to get into if you find the time to do it. I just want to make that clear right now, because it may seem like I'm just being incredibly biased. I do like Western comic books. So like I just said, the accessibility factor of all three mediums are there. If you have a phone, you have a way to start reading any of these amazing mediums. So with all this accessibility, who's winning the sales war? Spoilers, it's manga. I feel like no one should be surprised at that. Have you seen how much One Piece sells, baby? One Piece for the win. No one is ever beating it. One Piece on top. I don't care. Argue with your mama. Talk to the wall. One Piece is the GOAT. For example, One Piece has outsold entire publisher. Digital platforms and global fandoms have fueled this juggernaut's rise to fame. Western comics sales are decent, but definitely stagnant. And if you haven't noticed, comic book shops are incredibly niche. Unfortunately, they don't attract new readers in masses, probably like they used to back in the early 2000s to early 90s. Meanwhile, webtoons are just, microtransactions the machine, unfortunately. It's micro revenue, but it adds up over time. And while you might think it's just a race to see who sells the most, it's actually showing who's more adapting to the changing world. And those changes start with adaptation. A good adaptation can make or break a medium. If you haven't noticed, the manga anime pipeline is currently unbeatable. Shows like Attack on Titan boost manga sales into the millions. Demon Slayer the perfect example of that also. On the flip side, Western comics have iconic characters like Batman or iconic shows like Batman the Animated Series, but struggle with the consistency of keeping shows up to that level. For example, nowadays, if you watch any animated shows from DC, it's a hit or miss, unfortunately. And we don't even have to talk about Marvel's animated stuff, because honestly, we just shouldn't. What if we didn't? You see what I did there? What if we didn't? So webtoons are the new player in this space. Crunchyroll has kind of been at the forefront for putting out these webtoons into animation forms like God of High School, Tower of God. There's a couple more I'm not mentioning, but unfortunately, they all kind of suck, which really sucks because they're great stories. Tower of God is just an A1 series y'all should check out if you ever get a chance. Ignore the anime, just read the webtoon. Just there you go. Read the webtoon. Don't look at the horrible season 2. It feels like I'm watching a PowerPoint slide, and as someone who's making PowerPoint slides, it's embarrassing because I don't have the budget they have. They need to do better. Just let it cook. Tower of God's such a good IP. Please, Crunchyroll, whoever's developing this, the animators, just let it cook for a couple years. I promise you, it'll be worth the wait. Because these adaptations aren't just entertaining, it's how we're getting people into the medium. It's a gateway for new fans, and you can't mess it up with a bad one. Or just, makes them not want to check it out. Shout out to all the people that watch Blue Lock Season 2 that are never gonna read the manga now because of how rough that Season 2 was. Because sweet Jesus, that Season 2 is just bad, man. Anyway, let's talk about cultural influences. Manga celebrates friendship, perseverance, and epic transformation. Comics tackle social issues head-on like civil rights with the X-Men, political unrest with Captain America, and so on and so forth. Western comics aren't afraid to interpret real-life situations and flip them into a narrative that's digestible for a lot of people, even if they don't want to hear it sometimes. And webtoons reflect modern digital cultures, diving into mental health, relationships, and identity. Each medium shapes how we see ourselves in our world, and their influences run deeper than we realize. Beyond the Naruto runs, beyond the Kamehamehas and everything else, these things matter and influence us in ways that are very unique and wholesome to themselves. So here's a twist. They're borrowing from one another. Comics are taking cues from manga's dynamic paneling, mangas are dipping their toes into superhero themes, and webtoons are blending it all together with a fast digital approach. This cross-pollination is creating a storytelling renaissance, and it's incredible to see in real time, and I'm happy to be here. Thankfully, no medium has the monopoly on greatness. Each brings something unique, and together they're shaping the future of storytelling. Sometimes ninjas, sometimes heroes, sometimes epic scrolling. It's all waiting for you, so pick something up and let the stories take you somewhere you've never been before. So thank you for watching, and if you got this far, my name is Remy. Like, subscribe, and all the other fun stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Side note, if you do not like solo leveling, manhwas might be kind of hard for you to get into because solo leveling definitely changed the game when it came to manhwas. You will see a lot of blue screens, a lot of reincarnations, and a lot of necromancers that aren't actual necromancers. Okay, that's it. Bye. Have a good day.